Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we review books of every genre looking for the best of fun escapist books. Today we are doing a mystery. This book is called Elementary, She Read, by Vicki Delany. And obviously it's a play on Sherlock Holmes with Elementary, My Dear Watson, Elementary. And it looks like it's also a play off of Murder, She Wrote with Elementary, She Read, which I thought was kind of clever on the author's part. So this is the first of a series that's the Sherlock Holmes Bookshop Mystery Series. It is a little bit closer to a cozy mystery. It is not a grim, dark mystery. It's definitely not a suspense. So it's kind of on a more lighter tone mystery. So let's start with the plot. The plot is our main character, Gemma, is an owner of a bookshop that specializes in Sherlock Holmes memorabilia. So nothing super fancy, mostly things like, mugs with Sherlock Holmes silhouette printed on it, or DVDs of all the various series that have ever been produced of Sherlock Holmes, things like that. So it's just kind of a casual, touristy type of shop. And she herself is theoretically, maybe sort of related to Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes mysteries. And there's a lot of allusions to Sherlock Holmes in this, but most of it is fairly superficial. Anyway, so she is running this bookshop, and one day there's a huge flock of tourists came in off of a tourist bus. It was like a bridge club or something. And in the chaos of catering to all these tourists, all these customers, when they leave, she noticed somebody has left behind a first edition of Sherlock Holmes magazine, which she estimates is worth like $700,000 or, something like that, depending on how much somebody would actually pay for it, obviously, but something like that, very expensive. And she's like, why would somebody do that? And she figures out who could have left it behind, and she tracks this person down. I won't give away how all this happens, but she tracks the person down, and when she finds the person, she finds the person has been murdered. And so the mystery then is, what's up with the book? Who did the killing and why? And she herself becomes a suspect, so she wants to clear her name. And then, further on, other things happen. It's a murder mystery. You've got lots of suspects, and you've got lots of clues, and you've got lots of speculation, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that kind of gives you an overall taste of what the plot is. So, the Sherlock Holmesian part, our main character kind of vaguely resembles Sherlock Holmes, not physically. I mean, she's a female, obviously, and it's not that she's a female Sherlock Holmes. It doesn't come across quite that way. Her personality is very different, but she's somebody who makes a lot of observations. She notices a lot, and sometimes can be a little bit like, obviously this was something, and everybody else is like, it wasn't obvious to me. That kind of thing. So in that respect, resembles Sherlock Holmes. And now obviously there are a ton of books out there with Sherlock Holmes-esque characters, but the author does a pretty good job, I think, of having those Easter eggs to Sherlock Holmes, but not to feel like it's cloning Sherlock Holmes. Like, for example, Moriarty is in here, but he's just a cat that doesn't really like our main character, and that's it. He's not a bad guy or anything like that. He's just a spiteful little cat. And there's somebody named Irene here, but again, it's not really resembling the original Irene from the Sherlock Holmes mythology. It's more just, again, kind of an Easter egg hint for somebody who's in the know. So you don't have to be familiar with the actual Sherlock Holmes stories. Just being aware of who Sherlock Holmes is enough. You don't need anything deeper than that. They allude to a lot of things, but it's mostly like like the cat, where if you know about Moriarty in the Sherlock Holmes mythos, you would be like, oh, hey, that's cute, but it doesn't really affect the story at all. So I did like how the author handled that. It kind of is a draw for somebody who's interested in Sherlock Holmes, but not so much so that if you're not familiar with it, it matters. And it really doesn't impact, except for, I guess, the setting in a Sherlock Holmes bookstore and the particular book, but that's everybody's fighting over. Anyway, I liked how the author handled that. So that was good. It didn't feel too heavy-handed. All right, so I do like our main character. So she is not as obnoxious as Sherlock Holmes is in the books. So Sherlock Holmes in the books is a little bit too arrogant to be very likable as a person. He's admirable, but not necessarily likable. And she, on the other hand, is both admirable and likable. So I did like the way the author did that. I also like the way the plot is. So this is the main thing about the story is, of course, the plot, the mystery. So it was the right balance for me. I felt that there were clues sprinkled in to point to the murderer, but it wasn't so heavy-handed that it was obviously that person. There was also a lot of other suspects, and our main character does not come across as idiotic for speculating about these other characters, but at the same time, it isn't a case of the police don't come across as totally stupid either, which I really like. Because a lot of authors of mysteries, you have an amateur detective, you have to make the police idiots in order for your amateur detective to solve the case. And in this book, the author avoids that pitfall, which is really nice. So the mystery does come across as well-rounded, clues sprinkled here and there, red herrings here and there, but it doesn't go off the rails in one respect or the other. I did like that. It was good. It was a good balance in the plot. By the end of the story, I felt satisfied both at who the murderer was and what the motivation was and what the clues were leading up to it. It didn't come across as like, oh, nobody could figure this out. But it also didn't come across as, well, everybody should be able to figure this out. It was a good balance there. I also liked that it didn't come across as too cozy where you're just like, there is no mystery here. It's just, and it also doesn't come across as really suspenseful. There's no adrenaline rush, really. Some stalking happens, but it's very, very mild. So I like that. Anyway. No one comes across as unrealistic, I didn't feel like, including their actions. There's a little bit of things in there that, as a mystery, you're investigating something, you're like, this person is a little too nosy, but it doesn't come across as too unrealistic. I did like that. Another likable aspect of this book, there is almost no romance, but there is just the hint that in future books of the series there might be. So I kind of liked that level in this. There was nothing, there might have been a kiss on a cheek. There's nothing beyond that, I think, in this book. So I did like that. Things that I dislike. Really nothing came to mind. This was a fairly good pacing of the book. Things kept happening that made it interesting, but it wasn't frantically paced. You don't get the feeling like everything was just happening every instant of the day, like there was time to relax and sit back and, think about what has happened. But at the same time, it keeps the pace moving really fast. I really don't have anything negative about this book for what it is, a almost cozy murder mystery. It was good. I liked it. So I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up. I've definitely read murder mysteries that I've been much less impressed with. So this one, in comparison to some of those that I've read, I really liked. So I do recommend it if you like mysteries. All right, I think that's everything. So thank you for watching. I hope you join me next week.